Oh my God. I wasn't even watching you either when that happened.
Is this taboo?
You know what this is.
Did you ever? What color are your underwear? Blue.
Crass and inappropriate. It's your trippy hippie Alicia jumping on the mic from good old Utah.
Fuck. Danielle, I'm starting to feel this shit.
Welcome.
To Hard Talks.
Seduction.
Where the talks are really hard.
I thought this was Flaccid Talks.
This shit sound deep.
Ring. God. Hard Talks. Hard Talks.
Hard talks.
I hate my laugh.
To Hard Talks with a blonde and a hippie.
Brought to you by Hard Talk Production.
Ooh, we are back again. New week, new you, new us.
Ring, ring, bitch.
Ring, ring. Sarah, what is calling?
My vagina.
Mm.
What do you want me to say there?
Right there, the vagina. It is
perfect.
calling. At least mine is. Hey, it's been a few
I already
weeks.
went pee, so I'm good. Whoop, whoop. Oh.
Me and my-
Sexy. For the sex.
Me and my vibrator have gotten very close.
You need a new one yet?
I actually got a discount code for my birthday, so maybe I'll order one for myself.
You need to.
Yes. What is happening? I'm getting blown up here. Sorry, guys.
Happy birthday.
And tonight I am joined
Oh, yeah.
by you know
My
her,
God, that
know you
was
missed her.
I forget that happens. I needed to cut our theme song.
shocking.
It was. It's done
I was
that
like, wait,
before.
you're talking now?
It did that with Angel. Or maybe it wasn't. No, it was Chris Cruz. And he's like,
Chris Cruz.
who else is here? And I'm like, just me. Just me.
Just me and my voice.
I'm the devil on your shoulder. There's no Angel Sarah here to save you, so watch out.
Sorry.
This is Hard Talks with a Blonde and a Hippie. I am your trippy hippie, Alicia, jumping on the mic,
From good old Utah.
joined with my co-host.
Your favorite blonde.
Wow, chicka, wow, wow. We made it to another day.
We should do something big for like the 70th. 'Cause this
Dude.
is the 69th.
Dude, we're close.
69.
Oh, and
69.
how appropriate for the 69th episode, what we're going to talk about today.
And my phone was on 69%.
Oh, it's like when I see 11:11 every day. No shit. I am literally that like school girl who will like kiss my phone. I'll like wish with all my might.
And I wish.
Yes, it's like, you know, that feeling of intuition that you get in your gut. And it's like, I look for that. I'm like, I'm going to make my wish. And it feels right in my stomach. I'll kiss my phone.
Do you need like a dragon stone? And what is it like on Dragon Tales?
Shit, dude, I haven't watched that since I was
That
in
made me
pre-K.
think of that when they have the little dragons and they're like, and I wish.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I
Yes,
would
the
love a
little
dragon
dragon
stone.
stone.
Will you get one for me?
I'm going to look up on Amazon. Text me that right now so I don't forget because I will forget.
I hope it glows. Like, I hope there's some like LED light underneath it, and then there's the egg that sits on top, and then there's like some glitter on top. You know Halloween Town?
Yes.
With the talisman she has?
Yes.
And she's like, Bakey ma fee, and boo. And it's just glitter. I want that.
You won't get that. But I'll get you something close.
You mean you
Text
won't
it
get me
to
a Debbie Reynolds?
No, I'm sorry. Can't do that. I'm all out of Debbie Reynolds.
Damn it. So this is an 18 and up podcast. For our 69th episode, we will be talking about something taboo, but also something very beautiful. And I'm excited to hear about it
It's gonna be
because
awesome.
I really don't know a lot about it.
Neither do I.
And so we're learning together.
Yes, we are.
It's exciting. But just for you and your own children, we curse like sailors. I don't want to be responsible for your sweet children saying fuck or goddamn. So just take caution to that. Do what you want with that information. Whatever. So Sarah is starting some new endeavors.
Hey, yo.
I can tell our fam about that.
Okay, so I've thought about this actually for a really long time. So it wasn't just like an overnight thing where I'm like, I want to do this. Yes.
Was it before Caroline?
Oh, yeah. It's been like before even Kylie got Addie.
Okay.
So it's been like years.
Oh, wow. And if you don't know, Kylie has been on our first adoption episode. She wasn't able to have her own children. She's infertile, so she adopted her sweet daughter. So that's interesting that you've always thought about that. It's very,
I think because of Kylie, that's like what?
very heartwarming.
Yes. So it's about to be a surrogate. And those who don't know what a surrogate is, it's basically, because a lot of people are like, oh, is it your baby? And so it's not, I won't be related to the baby at all.
Right.
So it's like they get either, like if it's like like a gay couple, they'll get like an egg donor, or like maybe use their sperm, or like vice versa. They get like the sperm donor, or even like they can't, like her eggs aren't viable and his sperm just like they can't, like, because with Kylie, she did in vitro and it just like, it wasn't. Like the egg couldn't like really
Attach.
like wouldn't stick and it just died.
Oh.
So you could get like an egg donor and a sperm donor. So like for me, like the baby, like I would literally just be like holding their child that they make scientifically in a way in my uterus for them to like have a baby.
How do you feel about that? Because obviously if it was your child, if you had any blood relation to it, it would be an adoption, obviously. But how do you feel now that you've had your own child? Are you worried about forming a connection if you were to carry someone else's baby for 9 months?
I think like I've thought about that. And, I talked to Chase about it. Like I've talked to my mom. Like I've always like I even told Kylie, I'm like, I will have your baby. Like let me be your surrogate. And she's like, we just can't afford it. Like this was like back when I was like 18. I'm like, have your baby. Cause I'm like, I want her to have one. And so I'm like, I don't think I would, because for me, I'd be like, to me, it's like I'm carrying this baby for someone else.
It's a gift.
Like I'm like, because you can't have one, like let me be that person to help you have that gift, because I absolutely, like I've talked about, I love being a mom. Like it is like the best. Like I loved my pregnancy. I had the best pregnancy.
Yes, you did.
The best delivery. My grandma, she's so funny. She's like, I remember being in the room with you and you were just telling Chase to turn that. And I sat in bed that night and I was like, my grandma swore at me. Judy Bell swore at me. And I'm
Judith?
like, yes.
Whoa.
I like had to think about it. I think I was so in shock because she's like, I remember just standing there and you telling Chase to turn that damn thing on. And I was like, I wanted the birth, babe, Graham. I wanted her. So I had him videotape it with his GoPro. I'm like, just stay above my head. Like, don't get anything below the knee. But I'm like, turn it on. And the doctor's like, you got like a good 45 minutes. I'm like, turn the damn camera on right now.
So
and
half
we have
the
like an
footage
hour.
is you in just a bed.
Just like with my knees up, they're like, ready, push. And I'm like,
You did get lucky with your pregnancy.
Yeah.
And I personally think that it takes very big person to want to gift the gift of motherhood to someone who can't, or just parenting to families that aren't able.
Yeah.
But I also like, are you concerned about there being like a certain level of detachment? Because I feel like I would have to kind of detach from what's going on, or are there any concerns in your
Like,
mind?
what do you mean, like detachment?
So, like, when I was pregnant with my oldest son, because I was about 6 months pregnant before I finally made that decision to place him for adoption, I already formed that connection and attachment. Obviously, he is my biological child.
Yeah.
So there's that too. But after I made that decision, I felt like I had to detach from and reality a little bit.
Yeah.
I had to kind of go into this world of my own where it almost wasn't happening. You know, it was just something that I was going through, but it was temporary. You know, eventually it would be over, because if I continued on having that deep connection for my unborn baby, I wouldn't have been able to place him. You know what I mean?
And also it's hard to, like, if you think back, like at 6 months, like that's when you can really start feeling them move.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's for me, like when I was like before I could feel her, I'm like, am I even pregnant at this point? Like, is she even in there? Like, what is going on? And then I could feel her and I'm just like, oh my God, like I can feel her. I'm like, babe, feel my bump. And like every time like anyone would try to touch my bump, she would just like suck into my back.
Yeah, it's
So
like
it's
stage
like-
fright.
I know, right? So I'm like, I think with me going in, because I have no connection at all to this baby, and to the agency I'll go through, like they do a perfect match for you, and like with like seeing the family, I'd be like, to me, I would be like, this is your baby, like I am carrying your baby, like are you so excited to meet your baby?
Well, and they have legal rights to it, so from the get-go, before you ever even get pregnant, I suppose
It's like literally
into
there. Like I'm literally just like the carrying.
You are the boat and the baby is the passenger.
Basically. So it's like, and like, because they haven't figured out how to do like incubators yet for babies outside of wombs.
Like
I'm
close.
Just like, I'm just the incubator at this point.
I personally think that they have figured that
Oh,
out,
I'm sure they
but
have.
we just don't hear about it. You know what I mean?
And I'm sure that's like way like expensive too. So people are like, oh, just use a human body and we'll pay you. I'm like, go for it.
This is kind of off subject, but I was talking to someone who is older. She's in her early 50s, and this was her third marriage, and her husband was a little younger than her, and so he really wanted to have a baby. He never had his own children, and she already has 3 others that are almost adults, but she loved him, and so they went through in vitro. And is in vitro the same as IVF?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So they did IVF a couple of times.
So
And
she could get pregnant?
She could, but he couldn't. His sperm didn't work.
But she was 50.
Yes. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So by the time her baby was born, she was 51.
Well, that's fine, but like just like the older you get, like the more complications you have.
Well, and the harder it is to get pregnant.
Yes.
This is true.
And then him having issues anyways, it's just like, not like issues, but like his sperm like genetically doesn't work, which is fine.
But and I think that's why he never was able to have children previously. But it was interesting to hear her perspective, because they prayed for this baby and she got pregnant, and then she was born, and I don't really like the term, but a lot of people refer to them as test tube babies. You know what I mean? And she was like, I hate that term, but I honestly think there's an inkling of truth to this, because my daughter has been born with a lot of like medical complications, and she has Asperger's. And I think it's just interesting to see, since IVF and treatments like that are becoming more common, to see like trends in health in young adults and children who were made that way.
So like a lot of like test tube babies, as you like arrow quote me, like quote on that, it's like, because we were talking about, like I had my phone call this morning, so I can't like I won't like go through the surrogacy process until I'm done nursing, and Caroline's not even a year old yet, and I have to have 2 periods.
Okay.
So like if it were to happen like before, like, because me and Chase are going to really talk about it tonight, now that it's like really set up. It's like, do we want to have another one first and then have a surrogate baby, or give that like, or because like I'll go into that. So she was telling me, she's like, these eggs, they go through like genetic testing. So like a lot of people, you can literally get an egg and make it like how you want a girl, you can make that egg a girl.
That is
you want a boy,
wild.
You can have like that as a boy. So like
imagine if some doctor or scientist said that back during World War II. They'd be like,
what
they'd consider it as probably like
witchcraft
or like experiments.
Yeah. It's so crazy. Like it's like technology now is like insane. And so like she was talking about like what my beliefs are, and I'm like, so to me it's like it's like really like the questions she asked were like really personal, like really, again, like taboo. She's like, are you okay to have like an abortion? Like are you okay to have twins if that happens? Because like she's like, eggs usually will separate and you could have 2, like if you have 3 or 4, and like we have to terminate them.
Yeah.
Like, are you okay with that? And I'm like in the reality of it, it is my body, but it's like, then it's like, it's their choice because it's their baby.
Well, but
or
that also is a
have,
good question to ask, because for someone signing up for it, you have to morally be ready for anything. And I'm pro-choice all the way.
I think you should be. Like, it's your body. Like, you have a choice in what you want to do.
But that is something that I wouldn't even think of if she wouldn't even have asked. You know what I mean?
I never thought of it. Like, she was saying they go through a lot of testing, like when you have when you're like in like the baby's like in utero. Like we could have done that with Caroline when she had her Turner syndrome scare. They're like, we can go in like a really small needle and get her in like the fluid,
amniotic fluid.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to go through that. So it's like they can see if like they have any like disformities or like a loss of a limb, or like there's like so many things that like could contribute to like the parents of this child might not want, like if it's not viable, then they'd be like, we'll terminate the pregnancy in a way.
Is that something that you would be okay with?
So, I mean, again, like it's not like for me, like it would be heartbreaking because it's like that's their egg.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like if like your child is like this, it's like they won't make it past birth. That would be the hardest for me. I would rather terminate. I hate saying that, but like I would rather terminate it early than have to go through the full 9 months, have the parents
Right.
expect it, and then have like the loss of a baby.
Something happen.
Or
after
like
birth.
if they're just like if you have a stillborn and it's like, I don't know. Like, I guess like thinking about it now, like I don't know. It'd be so hard to think about because like if it was my baby, I would probably just keep the pregnancy and just go through with it because like knowing I'm like, I would just like want something to bury. But like if like it's like my body, but it's the parents.
Right.
Like it's their legal action of taking, like I don't want to take that baby and be like, well, I'm going to have it for you.
Right.
You can bury it. That's weird.
Oh God.
Right? Like
That's
that's just
awful.
like, you know, thinking about it. But it's like if the parents want me to, like I'd be like, it's your choice to terminate this pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm just like you're like
It's very interesting because I feel like
and that's why they do it so early on. Like the
Right.
testing so early on so you can get like the egg before like it is really super viable, I guess you could say. But like you gotta think about it too, like how she said it. It was like if it's like dangerous for you and the baby, like you gotta pick something.
right.
You know, and it's
Right.
like what's
Well, I think that's like a very, very good question to ask going into it because I feel like you have to be prepared for anything. I was gonna say it's interesting to hear this side of things because adoption is a little similar, especially if you go through an agency, even a nonprofit one. I went through LDS Family Services, and it's kind of the same setup. You go in, you talk to kind of like a therapist, and she asks you a whole ton of questions, basically about your religious beliefs, what you stand for morally.
yeah, so she didn't really ask me about like my religious beliefs, but like she asked me like, were you like, have you ever been to like in the psych ward? Like she went into like, I know it's like
they
really
need to
hard
know your
questions.
medical history.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then they want to know that too going in because, and it's kind of interesting, as fucked up as it is. Like my situation, it was like, it felt like I was flipping through a catalog of families. You know what I mean? And obviously it's reversed in that situation.
So they'll be flipping through like profiles of like who do they want to carry that baby.
So yeah, and they're gonna be flipping through profiles of you. And so it was just interesting to like see family pictures of these beautiful families with these houses and dogs and all the things that I didn't have at the time. And I don't know. Do you feel like there was a turning point like recently that really solidified you wanting to move forward and find out more about it?
Yes. So I'm on a Facebook group. It's called Mommies and Mimosas of Northern Utah. And this girl posted like a big post about it on there. And she's like, I want to talk about like, it's very taboo. She's like, I'm very open about it, like about my surrogacy process. She's like, ask me anything you want to know. Like, here's a link to go on if you want to like learn more about it and apply. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I've been thinking about this. And I even like kind of joked about it too at the salon. Like, have you ever heard me joke about I'd be a surrogate for somebody?
Yeah, a couple times.
So, like, I've always like, it's always been like, I've always been bringing it up. I'm like, yeah, but like but to be a surrogate, like they have to like you have to have at least one pregnancy or like have a child.
To know that you can carry.
So like where if like you don't and like you had one baby and then all of a sudden you had all these complications, like you can't have any more kids. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I have one and I was like, you know what? I'm like, I just want to look into it. And one night I'm just like, you know, I'm going to apply for it because, you know, I got time. Like, because and too, like when she called me, she's like, we are going at your pace. Like, when do you want to start this process? Like, what or where are you at? And I'm like, well, I am nursing. And she's like, see, we'll have to wait until she's done. Like, whenever you're comfortable, like, we can start this like this fall. We can start it 2 years from now. Like, it's all like this, like your pace. And like, it was super awesome. And she's like, we try to match you up with families with like the similar like beliefs in a way.
Lifestyle. Yeah.
And she's like, are you willing to travel? And I'm like, absolutely. And she's like, you have twins. And it was actually really funny. So
Could you imagine?
I know I'd be like, I'm like, give me all the babies. I'll have all the babies. It's fine. But she's like, oh, that's awesome. And it was really funny because I got off the phone with her and I called Kylie and I was like, I'm going to do this. And she's like, I'm going to cry. Like, that is like, I'm so happy for you. And I'm like, well, it's basically because of you. Like, you're the one that really, like, if I didn't have, like, if you were having infertility problems, like, I never would have thought about this.
Yeah.
Like, going through, like, with her and, like, Addie's adoption, like, we were talking about it one night and it's literally, like, she looks so much like me. Mm-hmm. Everyone calls her Sarah. Like, if you, like, looked at our, like, child pictures, we're just, like, two peas in a pod.
Yeah.
And she literally has our grandpa's eyes. Like those striking blue, it's like she is a more of a Belle than me and Kylie are.
Divine intervention.
And so she's like, and it's funny because like Addie, she always brings up Grandpa Bell. She's never met him. He died like 10, 11 years ago and she's 8. And she always brings him up.
I had experiences like that as a kid though too.
Yeah.
It's a sense of intuition. And what's even more remarkable is she isn't blood related, but she
No.
still had like
Yes.
this deep, religious or not, like spiritual heavenly connection with him before she was ever even born. That's interesting.
Yeah, and like with Addie's birth mom, like she went in knowing, she's like, I know I had to be pregnant for someone. Like she's like, this baby, I was carrying this baby for someone else. And that's how like I would go into it. Be like, I'm like, I want to give you that gift of being a parent.
Yeah,
Like
that's
whether it be a
beautiful.
mom or like, you know, like a couple that can't have kids or like a, you know, like I don't care who you are. Like
That's
you
a
want a baby, like I will
massively
give you a baby. Like you.
Selfless decision to
And like,
make.
yeah. And I loved it. So we were talking about the twins and my grandma has always told Kylie that she's going to have twins. She's like, I know you're going to get pregnant and have twins. And Kylie's like, that'll never happen for me. One, because, you know, her husband can't, like his sperm just doesn't go fast enough and her eggs are like, she doesn't have
Aren't
enough.
they both infertile?
Yeah.
Both sides? Okay.
So like they tried in vitro, like everything. So it's like, she's like, Grandma, it's never going to happen.
Would she want more children? Would
They've
you like
talked about
considered
it.
being a surrogate for your sister?
I've asked her. She told me no. So yes, I've like tried. Like I'm like, Kylie, I'll be here. I'm like, you want my firstborn? But now I have Caroline. I'm like, never mind. You can't have my firstborn.
See, I feel like that would be even more difficult though, because like in family adoption, right? It's like, it's nice because you're still a part of their life. You get to see them grow up. You do have that connection still, but at the same token, like you have no say in their upbringing or anything that goes on in their day-to-day life. Do you think it'd be more difficult if you did a surrogacy for someone in your family?
I think it would because like thinking about it, you're like watching them. You're like, I carried that child for 9 months and now you're doing that, and it's like I would like thinking about it now, like. Watching babies cry just makes me so sad. Or like when I see with their little hands clenched and they're like drinking a bottle, it just breaks my heart.
And
I don't know why
we've
it
talked
does
about
that,
that
but
too,
it's
and
just
it's
so
well, it's
weird.
funny because motherhood really does change you. Like I remember before you ever even got pregnant with Caroline, like you'd look at other people's kids and be like, "Oh my god,
I hate other people's kids. I still do.
But
oh my god! But
you have more
babies-
empathy.
Yes.
You know, you see a like an older child, like 5 through 10, and if they're sad or hurt or, you know, it's your motherly instinct to reach out and want to help. Whereas before, I mean, obviously we
I just
still
wanted
have
to wring
that,
their neck.
that
I'm like, "Ooh."
that nurturing trait.
Yeah.
You know, it's harder because you don't have the experience of caring for another human being in that light.
And to me, like for them, I'd be like, "This is your child. Like you can care how for like." And it's nice, like if like I wouldn't be a part of their life because again, like I'm not blood related at all. But to me, it's like you wanted a baby for so long, like you're paying all this money to go through surrogacy to have a family.
Yeah.
But like I was saying about the twins, is my grandma always told Kylie, she's like, "You're gonna have twins. You're gonna have twins," and Kylie goes, oh, "You're supposed to have my twins." And give them to someone else. And I'm like, oh my God, don't put that on me, please.
Oh my gosh. But like,
so it's like a wraparound way of like, she can't have twins. So then I would carry twins to give to someone else who also can't have kids.
so you mentioned them like kind of bringing together families that have the same lifestyle, same beliefs, etc. Obviously, since they are making this financial investment in you, if they picked you, do you also like get to agree? Like, say you don't like this couple, because I mean, it's still their fertilized egg going into your body.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure. I don't know. Like, does it? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. So she was saying it's very like based on like they can pick like like it's always called the perfect match. Like you can talk to the family, like, and it's all about like, because it is my body. It's like they're like kind of like more towards like what are you okay with doing, and we'll match them to the family of what they also want.
I
So it's
obviously
all
don't
about,
know
like,
enough about this, but like in my dumb brain, I'm thinking like, say like, obviously a couple who signs up to do this, like what if one has a history of mental illness or heart disease or something like that? Could carrying a child with their same genetics affect you in any way? Does that make sense?
I really
Probably
I
not.
don't think so, because like,
But that's what was in my
genetically
brain.
not me.
Right.
And
But it's
like
still
the
in
only
your
thing,
body.
the only thing that like would really connect us would be the umbilical cord, but that's only for them to like for me to give
For
them
nourishment,
the
yeah.
baby nourishment. Like that's like there's no like blood relation.
That's
at
just
all.
the oddball question that's been
I mean, you
swimming
never
around
know.
in my brain.
Because a lot of people are like, oh, so you're a surrogate. Like, do you have, or is it your egg and like someone else's sperm, or is like whatever, like, is it your baby? And they're like, no, it's like we have no relation at all to this baby.
Because I know there's different forms of surrogacy where some people will opt to do that.
I think you can use like you want like, because she also like, I have a link I can post. I can send you the link for it, and you can like look into it if you like want to learn more about it.
Yeah,
Like it
I'm
goes into
curious.
like whatever, and it's there's also egg donation on this one. It's called Conceivabilities. So there's egg donation you can do, so you can donate your eggs. I've actually thought about that as well.
Isn't it crazy though? You
But
can
that
make a
one-
lot of money off of donating your eggs.
Yes, but donate like egg donation, they really like are like very nitpicky on the eggs they choose.
Well, I'd hope so.
Like she asked like my height. Like she was like,
Yeah.
what height are you? Like how much do you weigh? Like all this stuff.
Girl,
and I'm like,
that
"Oh,
reminds
I'm
me.
5'7". I thought I was 5'8", but I'm 5'7". That's a weird. I lost an inch.
That reminds me of this guy in the UK who is donated to a sperm bank over 700 times.
Damn.
So
I
in
told
my
Chase, I'm like,
brain,
babe, get in there.
I'm like, can someone go into a sperm bank or like a donation center and donate as many times as they want? Or is it kind of like same scenario, a catalog where a family's flipping through and this guy is just like A+ status and they want his sperm?
Right?
Like,
I think
what?
they don't really like show pictures of him. It's like donor number, blah, blah, blah. And
But
these are his traits.
I think I'd want to see what they look. Well,
you would, because you don't know. You might,
obviously now we're trailing down a different track, but I mean, like, if you were biologically related to the fetus in any way, like if that was your egg or if that was the sperm you were donating and you were choosing that person where it's different, where it has no relation to you, I think I would want to see what the mother looks like or the father looks like if there was going to be that genetic link there. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
Because it's like, as fuck, I'm shallow. We know
I mean,
this.
you never know though. Like,
I don't
what
want
if
to
you guys make an
snaggle
ugly
to
baby?
fucking like illiterate
And
motherfucker.
there you go into, you can literally make the perfect child. Like you want a blonde hair, blue eyed baby, you get like an egg donor and a sperm donor, and you can make it a blonde hair, blue eyed baby. You want just brown, and I love Caroline's blue eyes. She freaking has blue eyes.
But she has the most beautiful eyes.
Like what the heck? I think she might have.
That is just so kind of crazy. Like, and I think that's why it's so taboo, right? Because a lot of people of Christian faith are like, "Oh no, it's not God's will. Like, you're genetically making this human up in a lab or whatever." But it's also at the same time, it's fucking miraculous.
But the thing
you
is,
know what I
though,
mean?
is you're not making you're assisting. You're assisting and
Yes.
helping that, because sometimes like you can't get pregnant. Like that little sperm dude, he got like a little like scraggly tail. He can't make it to the egg. I mean, like, yeah, think about it. This egg is so protected. Like how I'm surprised anyone can get pregnant at this point, because that egg is like sperm. Get out of here, sperm. And it's like, why it's punching one in the face, this one behind it's like, I'm gonna sneak in here. You know what I mean? You like that?
And then there's me with sperm where I'm like, stay away.
Right, exactly. So it's like you're assisting in having a baby. And I think anyone, I mean, you take that with a grain of salt, that most people should experience parenthood.
I'm going to argue that because there are some fuckers in this universe that should never.
That's why I said most.
They should never breed.
Most people should.
For all the rest, you guys just go have yourself a party because
I mean, crap, you know.
Oh,
but I'm excited. Like, yeah, she like asked all the questions. Like, I have a link for it and like egg donation, but it probably won't happen for like again, who knows? Like, I gotta talk to Chase because like even like you don't think about this like I was thinking about this like on the way here because Chase he called me on lunch. That's why I was late too, and he was like, well, like. He's like, what happens if you die on the table?
Oh, my
God.
God.
Like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, that's the thing. Like, you don't think about that in your own pregnancy.
Oh, I did. Worst case scenario for everything.
Right? I'm over here like, and then she like, you go through like what your birth plan is. She's like, what's your birth plan? She's like, would you be okay having an emergency C-section? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Like, whatever, you know?
Well, I mean, obviously it's your body.
Yeah, so you can
But
say
if you had to accommodate your birth plan to said parents' birth plan, would you do it?
See, for me, I'm like, do whatever means is like safely. Like if like the baby's breached and we're having issues, like it's me and the baby could die at this point. Okay, cut me open, get it out. Let's get this done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to be here and be like, no, I need a nat. Because like a lot of people go in like, I have a birth plan. Like I want a natural birth. Like this is what I'm doing. They're in labor for like 14 hours. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you have to have an emergency C-section. Like his heart rate's dropping. You're going into like, you know, like you're going to pass out here soon. Like it's just a crazy type thing. And they're like, no, I need a natural birth. I'm over here like even with Carolyn, I'm like, do what you got to do to keep me and this baby safe.
Right.
You got to cut me open. And I think women who have C-sections, like ladies, hands down, like I bow down to you because oh my God. Like they cut you open 7 layers, right? And then they got to pull a baby out and then they got to stitch you back up.
Organs around.
Honestly, they got to stitch you back up and they got to come in here and push to help contract your uterus. And they're pushing on your very sore incision. You got to like get up and walk right after. And I'm like, those who like, and everyone's like, oh, you got the easy way of a C-section.
And who's the
Be
weaker sex?
Fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
Because
who's the fucking
C-sections-
weaker sex? You get slit open from this side of your hip to this side of your hip, and then you are expected to mother at the same time, and you're not even allowed to like vacuum.
No.
You know, and so, but no, the world expects you to just jump on your feet and just be right back at it. It's wild.
Even like into like I like, but again, I was like, I had like I even told her like on the phone, I was like, yeah, I like labored for 6 hours, and she's like, that's a really fast birth. I'm like, I know, I could have gone a little bit faster, but you know, here we are 6 hours later.
It's
and I was even like induced on her due date, and she's like, were you induced? Like, do you have any problems? And I was like, no, I was induced, because if I wasn't induced, she probably would. I'd still be pregnant. She's like,
yeah, Sarah didn't have a marathon; it was more of a sprint.
I mean, I'm like, are we coming out? Yeah, I'm like doing whatever I could to get this damn baby out. And I'm like, she's not coming out. I'm like, that's nice.
So let me ask you about the process a little bit more before we wrap it up. Where did you learn, or how did you know which websites to contact?
So that's what like I think.
Where'd you do your research?
So I didn't do any research actually, but I think that's like, but because it was her story and like how she had such like great things to say about the agency she went through. I clicked on it and I read through it and I was like, I want to try it. And too, she's like, and the girl that called me, she's like, yeah, like you can go through different agencies. Like it doesn't matter.
Well, that's why I asked, because I know there's a lot that are more like acclaimed than others. You know, there's better companies or agencies out there than others.
And there's a girl that my sister knows that had 6 pregnancies. I think 5 are hers and 1 was a surrogate.
Oh, wow. So
I'm like, God, how many kids? She's like, yeah. I'm like, damn. So I think I'm going to like, I have her number. So I'm going to text her and ask her what agency she went through. And like different agencies, like you get paid different. Like they all do different compensation packages. Like they all have different ways of doing things. And that's what she said too on the phone. She's like, for us, we give you one base pay. Like this is what you get and this is it. Oh. Other ones are like, okay. Is
it in the beginning or after the baby is born?
I don't know. I have to ask
that's what I was going to ask. Like, how does financing work with that? I can text her.
So, like, she was saying, too, she's like, So my insurance.
Picking your nose.
Yeah, I like have an itch. So my insurance will cover having a baby, obviously, and then whatever my insurance doesn't cover, the couple will cover. So I
So
have
they
no
cover
expenses.
all. Okay, that's
So,
good to know.
And two, like she's like, "Are you willing to travel?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." She's like, "Because if we get like an out of state couple, you'll go to their their fertility place where they're at and do all of that."
Will they pay for all of your travel
Yes.
expenses?
So like say like in the time being, she's like, "You'll have to pay for it up front, but then you'll be reimbursed within the week."
It feels kind of odd talking about money with babies.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Like babies are expensive though, so like gotta be like honest.
But it's like, do you get a lump sum? Like, do you get paid well?
yes.
Okay, because I would think
So for me, she's like, "Do you want to know how much you'd be making?" And I'm like, "Sure." Like I don't want to be that person where I'm like, "Let me give all the money," you know. And she's like, "So you would be making $51,000." Yeah.
That's what I'll be making annually with my new job, minus $1,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's, I mean, like, you do get like paid a lot, and she's like, a lot of companies will give you like
I'm like in
extra
shock.
bonuses for like maternity clothes or whatever, and I'm like, we already have maternity clothes, so that's cool. And she's like, it's up to you what you want to spend that money on.
But also, like, I'm just using my own personal experiences because that's all I can base it off of.
Right?
But
I mean, I don't
like,
even know either.
I remember when I was pregnant with Grady and when I finally made that decision to place him for adoption. And I remember talking to a friend who was a male, and he was just like, this is temporary. And at the time, my emotions are heightened. I'm so sensitive, not much different than now. But he was just like, this will be over in like 3 months, you know? And I'm just like, 3 months feels like a fucking lifetime.
But it like literally goes like that. I have like a 9-month-old on the 13th.
It's wild though. Like, have you thought about the time? You know, because Caroline's going to be 1 soon. Like, have you thought about the 9 months that you would have to take pause from your own life, basically, to bring this gift to someone else?
Yeah, and she like brought up, she's like, "Do you follow the CDC guidelines?" And I was like, "What are the CDC guidelines at this point?"
Like
I'm like,
COVID, yeah?
No, yeah. And she's like, "If you were to be pregnant, would you?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." It's like, and like for me, like I'd have to think, like I didn't think about that. I was like, "Oh," I'm like, "It's not my baby," so I'd be extra cautious in what I did because it's like it's not your baby,
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, and two, it's like, yes, it's still your body, and yes, at the end of the day, you get to make the hard choices. But
but at the same time, it's like this is the child's life that like they like whatever you do to your body now will affect them in the long run.
Right. Have you thought about, because like, obviously it is a big investment. We've already covered that. But I mean, like,
Travel time.
do you think that you'd feel like a pie, like people are taking slices out of your pie? Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
No,
like, yes, you
see-
still are in charge, but like
Like in a sense, you're
are
not at
you
the same
really?
time.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think so because like again, it's like for me, I'm like, this is your child. Like, what do you want to do? Like, I'll turn to the parents first and be like, I know it's my body, but it's like essentially, it's like it comes down to your decision. Like you at the end of the day, like you have to take care of this child forever.
That's
like
an
I carry
incredibly-
it for 9 months and then like I'm done.
That's an incredibly interesting dynamic to think about, right? Because basically these people who are the biological parents of the
Yes.
baby that you're carrying,
Just I literally just 9 months of my life
Yeah.
I have to carry it, and I'm just like,
you
here's
have
your
to
newborn. Good
but,
luck.
But you still would have to form like some prenatal co-parenting relationship
Yeah.
with them. You know what I mean? Like any decision you would make, you'd basically have to go to them and be like, are we on the same page? Do we
Yeah.
all agree?
And I think that's where like the perfect match comes down to. It's like, 'cause she's like, are you gonna dietary like restrictions? Are you allergic to anything? I'm like, no. So I think too, like a lot of it is like you have to like really be open communication with the parents of like, okay,
What if you got matched with like a devout Jewish family and they only
I
wanted,
don't think that would.
but they only
happen.
wanted you to eat kosher and shit like that?
You bet your ass I would.
Hey,
One, I'd probably be super healthy.
yeah, probably.
Two, I would do any. I thought about that. I was like in the shower today thinking about that. I'm like, what if they don't want me to eat processed? I'm like, I'd have to. But like for me, like Caroline, every time, like this is funny. Every time I eat McDonald's, it does not agree with her. So for me, I stopped eating it
Because it affects your breast milk.
because at first, and like when I was pregnant, like it made me so sick, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh my god. So like for her, I'm like, I opt not to eat it anymore. Like before pregnancy, I was like every other day, I'm like, McAdee's.
Yeah, I like French fries because they taste the same coming back up.
Go, right?
Kind of like a banana.
So
You're welcome.
I'm like, but like for her, I'm like, I would, because like my cousin, she's having a hard time getting her breast milk in. And she's asked me to give her some breast milk before. And I was like, absolutely. I'm like, yeah, like any way I can help you. And she's like, I found my little boy can't have dairy. And I was like, girl, I got you. I'm like, I'll pump fresh out. And I'm like, I made sure I had no dairy at all for like 24 hours. And I'm like, I'm like 24 hours prior, I'm like, no dairy. Got it. And I'm like, okay, don't have dairy until I pump her some milk. So I was really conscious about that because I'm like, I want your baby to be fed. Like, I want you to, you know, help you. So for me, I'm just like, any way I can help you. I'm like, no dairy, done. Let's go. Cut it out.
You have a giant fucking heart, Sarah.
And I think too, like, again, with you, like, I wonder if like you would have thought about it differently if you didn't go through the adoption process.
Yeah, no, and I think it's absolutely amazing. Like,
and I think I don't want you for
I don't want
too.
that to be misconstrued anyway. I'm just asking questions that I would ask myself. You know what I mean?
Like, like, I commend you because, like, for me, I don't think I could do adoption. 110%. There's no way. Well, because for me, I would be like, this is like birthing that child that is me. I'd be like, nope, sorry, I can't do it. Done.
Yeah.
But like surrogacy, I think I could do that because I'm like, it's not my baby.
Right. There is.
I have no like emotional connection
Yeah.
to it. I'm giving you like my uterus to use basically in a sense to have your own baby. But like
storage.
Be like, yeah, I'm like
storage center.
If I can take it out, here you go. I'm just like holding your baby for you for 9 months and you can take it. But like for you, like anyone who places, I'm just like, you guys are like my heroes. And to like another thing with like Kylie, I'm just like, it gave her an amazing gift, but like I'm like selfish in a way where I'm like, I could never do that.
Well, and you know, I hated that for a long time when people, because like you could relate to this now that you're considering this, but you probably take it in a good light because it is so selfless, this act that you're considering. When people would come up to me and be like, oh my God, what a selfless thing of you to do, that really pissed me off, especially in the beginning, because it was like, fuck you, man. Like, I wanted to be selfish, but it's also like I wanted to give this baby absolutely everything that I couldn't. And so it was almost like a sucker punch to the gut anytime anyone would try to commend me because I didn't feel like I did anything worth commending. And I don't know, like we'll talk about like the change in abortion laws and all that because we're getting deep with these next few episodes. But, you know, I've also been in every single position. I have never considered surrogacy, but I have placed my son for adoption. I have a beautiful son that I have raised and given birth to, and he is wonderful. But I've also had an abortion. And there's this weird sense of,
The only thing you need to have a surrogacy now, a new egg donation, so you can have like.
Then I can check every box off
in
on
the
the
pot.
list.
You're like, oh, I know exactly what you're going through.
But after my procedure, I mean, you remember that time, I really was like, what kind of fucking person am I? There was this real question that I've never been, or this position I've never been in before where, because I'm not a religious person, but I've never questioned my morality. And it was, what it came down to was society's views and expectations of me. It had nothing to do with me, even though I knew that was the best decision for me in my life and my youngest son. Yeah. But it was because society was telling me it was wrong. So I felt like it was wrong. You know what I mean? And I don't know, like it's interesting how like bringing a life into this world or even considering it brings on this new sense of who you are, what you want, and like what you stand for. It's not just, oh, I'm pregnant and I'm going to have a baby or someone else's baby. It's suddenly you're looking inward and you're like, holy shit, this is heavy. And I don't know, man, like I think it's really cool. Like here's a question I would ask myself if I was considering it. And I think this is a good one. Okay. Are you ready? What if a couple asked you to get vaccinated?
I am vaccinated.
Oh, I forgot. If you weren't, though.
If I wasn't, I'd be like, that's a little hard.
Spin the wheel on that perfect match.
Yeah, be like, you know, for me, I wouldn't. Because I already, like, I got vaccinated because Chase got vaccinated. And I'm like, if we go down, I'm going down with you. Like, you not leave me here alone. Like, you little asshole. No. But, like, before I was like, I'm not going to do it. But now, like, I didn't want to do it when I was pregnant. And I would have been like, that's a hard no for me. Like the flu vaccine, she asked me about that and I'm like, I'd get the flu vaccine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Like whatever. Like I get that occasionally anyway. So it's not like the COVID vaccine, I would have been like, that's a hard no for me.
Yeah.
But since I already have it, I'm just like, yeah, I'm vaccinated, whatever. But before I probably would have been like, no, to me, that's a hard no. Right. Flu, I'd absolutely get the flu. Like I've gotten it already, so I know what it does to my body. Like COVID, it's like whatever, I already got it because I'm like, Chase got it. I'm like, you don't get it without me, asshole.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic to talk on because I mean you could just go in so many directions with it, right? Like,
like what other vaccines? Like, because she's like, are you up to date on your childhood vaccines? And I was like, yes, because there's a lot of anti-vaxxers out there, so I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, what if but you got again, I think they'd pair you with another anti-vaxxer family.
Right.
So, like that's where the perfect match comes in. Like that's why she's like we still have to go through way many more questions, like morally, to really get that perfect family.
Right. And again, this was your first consultation.
Yeah.
So.
And I won't really again go through the process because she has to get my medical records still. Like me and Chase have to really talk about it. And then too, she's like, what's your timeline? That's what's nice about it is she's going off of my timeline. And she's like, well, and my mom's like, well, don't you want another one? Because what if something really bad happens? She's like, are you okay just to have one? And I'm like, and that's what me and Chase really got to sit down and talk about tonight. It's like, okay, I had perfect pregnancies, perfect delivery. What if the second one's not? Right. Should we have another
Knock
one?
on wood.
Yeah, right. Should we have another one to just in case? But at the same time, I think about it and I'm like, I keep going back and forth. I'm like, yes, I do want another one. But at the same time, I'm like, I already have one. I don't want to be selfish in a way of if I could give someone a baby, I want to be able to do that.
Do you think
before I had another one?
Do it more than once?
Maybe. I mean,
if it goes well.
I mean, if it goes great and if I have one and I'm like, this is awesome, have my second and be like, you know what? I love being pregnant. So I tell Chase I could have 10 kids.
There's some women that just thrive off pregnancy, whereas I'm barely hanging on to
I know,
dear
right?
fucking
You're over
life.
here you need IVs, but I know. I talked to Kylie and she's like, I was talking to our cousin about it and she's like, we were just talking about how you had the best pregnancy. I'm like, other than my swollen ankles and my heartburn, it was great.
Yeah. But I mean,
it was dead of summer. I was 9 months pregnant in August.
And
so
it was hot.
It was the hottest summer Utah could have had. And I was like, I'm pregnant. This is great.
Drought season.
And I got really bad heartburn and I still have heartburn to this day. But I'm like, you know what? I'll live on Tums.
Antacids. But I mean, that I was saying, it really is an amazing thing, right? It's easy to get consumed by worst case scenario and potentially let that prevent you from doing the things that scare you, but ultimately that you never regret, right? But it's also a very humbling experience, even carrying your own child, because it's no longer about you.
Yeah.
It teaches you so much perspective. It teaches you, a sense of where you sit in the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
because in the grand scheme of things, we're one person out of 6.3 billion, and our lives are really short. So it's right. I don't know. It really opened my eyes to the universe and not just my own.
Yeah. And being a parent, I remember talking to you about it before. I remember talking to my clients about it, how I was like, we are not co-sleeping. People that would co-sleep, I'm like, oh my God, you're a co-sleeper.
Shit changes,
how
man.
How could you? I'm like, no. I'm like, nope, we're not doing this. We're not doing that. I'm over here everything I said I'm not doing, I do. I'm like,
it's like a birth plan. You could plan and plan and plan, and then when it happens, it's fuck the birth plan. Get the shitter out of me.
Yeah, I did try. We definitely did try the non-co-sleeping, but literally that little hoeback, I love her. She literally was awake from 2:00. She came out of my vagina at 2:15 a.m. She did not fall asleep till 5.
She's been awake ever since.
And she's been awake ever since. I'm like, okay. I'm like, can you take her to the nursery? I'm freaking tired.
Did you drink too much coffee during your pregnancy?
I don't know. Some.
That's a good one too. What if someone asked you to stop drinking caffeine?
I mean, for me, when I was pregnant with myself, I kind of cut out my caffeine anyway. Yeah. So I'm chugging all the caffeine I can because I don't really breastfeed as much. So I'm like, for me, I'm like, I'm okay with that. It's again, it's your unborn child. Their long-term effects of what I do now is an effect on later.
So here's something too. in some adoption situations, if it is like in-state, they're close, some adoptive parents will request that you pump breast milk or you even breastfeed your child.
I would love to. I'd do
I
it.
said no.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, my aunt and uncle didn't even ask me, but it's something that our therapist asked us, and I was just like, that's something I could not do. Granted,
that would be hard.
after the fact, when I was trying to get rid of my milk, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to experience the connection and that bond and
But that's
being able
what
to
would be
feed my
hard.
baby. But yeah, there is.
I don't think I could like I always joke about I could breastfeed another baby, but like every time I say that and I breastfeed Caroline, I'm like I couldn't because I would get so attached just from like looking at him, and I love that. But I would be more than happy to pump breast milk for him because I've done that for my mom. Actually, just recently, her one of her nurses had a really hard time getting pregnant, got pregnant, had a baby, and she's like, I don't know if I can pump. I really want to try. And she's like, do you have any? I'm like, girl, do I have any? I got you, boo.
She'd a milk cow up
And
in
even
here.
like my cousin, I'm like, anyone need breast milk? Even my aunt who watches Caroline, she's like, I got an extra bag if someone needs it. I'm like, honestly though, I'm like, I'm wasting it at this point.
Yeah. Well, there's milk banks like Mikhail.
Mm-hmm.
I did her hair the other day.
I saw that.
God damn, she's fucking awesome. She's such
funny.
a spitfire.
I love her pictures.
Oh my God, like
That Mother's Day one where she was still when she
tandem
was
breastfeeding.
Yes.
Yeah. She
love
is a
that.
strong son of a bitch. That chick. I really would love her to come back
and
onto
see,
the
like,
show.
how she was like vegan, and she found a mom that was like strictly vegan, so that really helps too.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's a
I
lot
mean, I
of,
probably couldn't go vegan for anyone. I'm sorry, but I could try.
but it's interesting to talk this and kind of expand the mind.
Mhm.
Like I said, because there's so many things that you wouldn't even think about.
No.
So many things I didn't think about. That's why I'm asking so many questions.
because she's like, "Do you have any questions for me?" And I'm like,
I'm overwhelmed.
I don't know. And she's like, but like the question she was asking me, I'm like, I never even like thought about that. Like my mind was like blown. I was like, I could have twins. What?
Yeah.
I'm like, sure.
Or triplets.
Or triplets. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But she's like, because sometimes when you do one egg, they can split. So I'm like, ugh.
So this is something that you mentioned you've considered since high school.
Yeah, because like when Kylie, I'm like, I'll be yours there again. And she's like, that's okay. I'm like, really?
Did you ever consider, I mean, obviously Caroline's here now, but did you ever want to be a surrogate before having your own children? Or
Yes.
did you feel like it mattered?
I always said I wanted to, but every time I brought it up, everyone's like, you have to have your own first. I'm like, well, that sucks. I'm like, I'd be more than happy to have everyone's baby.
But I think that's a
first.
good idea because
But
you
it's-
can relate to them and the massive
And
gift of
now
life that you're giving.
I can appreciate it more because of me being a mom. Like I absolutely like Corey kind of made a joke about how bitch bonus Corey. She's like, you were meant to be a mom. And I'm like, I was. And she's like, so you didn't have to do anything. And I was like, no.
Oh, what do you mean? A
I was
mother
like,
has
well,
the
'cause I didn't
hardest
have-
job.
I didn't have to work.
And the pay sucks, let me
The
tell
pay is
you.
horrible.
but it's
But,
the
like,
most rewarding gig you'll ever have.
Yes. Like there's just days where like even like to this day, like yesterday, I was thinking, yeah, I'm like, I just look at her and be like, we have a child. Like we have to take care of her. But I'm like, just some of the shit she does. Like she just looks at you and just like the love of her, and it just is like, oh, it's amazing. Like I
It's amazing.
love, like, and I want someone else to experience that, whether they be male or female. Like you just be a parent.
Yeah.
Like she's like, do you have preference? And I'm like, I don't care. Who wants a baby?
That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you for even like taking the steps. Because you text me yesterday. You're like,
I know.
hey, I might be late. I have a phone interview. And I thought you meant like for a job.
I literally signed up for this on Saturday.
Well, because I've been gone. And I feel like we even said that as soon as you walked in. I'm like, I feel like it's been a year.
It's
like
been forever.
Even not talking to you for 7 days. I feel like,
I
you
we
know,
lost
so
our-
much
we
has
lost our
happened.
streak because I always like, I'm like, we're always like in each other's lives. And I'm like, you went to Mexico. And I'm like, off the face of the earth.
I did fall off I did
Like,
that
what
on
the hell?
purpose. I left my phone.
That's
I
good.
tried to stay present on social media, but it was just too hard.
I
and
mean, you're on vacation. Take a break.
it was also making me sad. I really needed to go there and get centered.
Like a cleanse.
Yes.
It's fine.
Yeah. But I mean, lastly, before we wrap this up, so Chase is on the same page. How does he feel about it?
Yeah, he's like, go for it. I don't care. Go for it. I mean, he's very like, even when because like I was talking to my sister-in-law about it, and she's like, well, how does Chase feel about it? I'm like, he wasn't very touchy-feely when I was pregnant. He loved the look of me being pregnant. Like, he was like, I loved your pregnant body. But he wasn't like, let me feel the baby.
Right.
I was always like,
but I
feel the
also feel
baby.
like that's not something you could just be like, go for it towards. That's something you really need to consider.
And I think like, because at first I was like, we just thought about it. But like, I'm like, let's really consider this. Like, I'm like, would you be okay with it? And he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I could do that. He's like, I feel like it would be okay. He's like, and for him, he's like, I think he thinks it'd be harder for me because like I get so attached.
Right.
Where he's like, because he wasn't really like, he's probably gonna be like, why would you tell people that I was just fine? I'm like, not trying to be like, like he wasn't involved at all. But like he just like kind of wasn't like, to him, like even like at the ultrasounds, he was like,
cool.
It didn't really like register in his brain until she was like literally in the world that we were having a baby.
Which is like 98% of men.
So I'm like, for him, I'm like, he wouldn't really be in the room when I was delivering. Like I would want him to be, but at the same time, I'm like, well, this isn't really our child, so you don't really have to be there. Like the birth parents, absolutely.
No. He needs to be there still.
Well, he'd be like in the background, like not like forefront where he was. I'm like, videotape this and watch her being born. Like he'd be like with the nurses over there doing his thing, making sure like he was my support. But I'm like, I want the birth parents to be like, maybe the dad be like, like stay up here by the head, but the mom you could watch all you want.
That's cool that you want.
I'm like, have like either like the mom or like the dad, like one of them cut the umbilical cord because my grandma cut Caroline's because she cut mine, and so I'm like, I didn't care. I'm like, because I even had like Tegan in the room. I'm like, anyone who wants to be in here, come in and watch my vagina. Like, there's no personal space after.
I had a lot of people in the room for my first delivery, and I struggled having my Grady's adoptive mom in there, but it's also something I felt like she needed to be a part of.
Yeah.
To immediately connect and form that bond. So I think that's very big of you.
Yeah, because for me, it's like with Caroline, she slipped out, and I'm like, I want skin to skin automatically. But for me, I'm gonna be like, hey, mom, be in the room, be ready to kind of catch the baby in a sense of like. And I'm like, and I want to tell the parents, I'm like, make sure you have someone taking pictures, because I was so grateful Tegan was there because she took pictures of Chase. And like, I'm like, babe, go with the baby. I'm like, I'm fine. Like get videos of her, like them wiping her off and like weighing her and like stretching her out and like getting her like length and everything. I'm like, I wanted that. And then he put the GoPro away, and I'm like, I kind of don't remember a lot of it because like I was over getting stitched up.
Right,
obviously.
you're in shock.
Right. And then, like, but she got pictures of like him holding her and like us sitting together on the bed and like her face of like,
yeah,
y'all are my parents.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we are. Welcome to the world. And she's like, I hate you already. I'm like, I know, it's fine. And like, I love that how she got like Chase, like that's the first time I've ever probably seen him cry. It's like he was tearing up and he's like, I have a kid. And I'm like, I want the parents to be like, this is your baby. Like, have her like kind of like come out of my uterus into your arms. Like, this is your baby. Like,
and that's where the separation begins. Like,
yeah, like this is like yours. Like, go in another room. Like, you and your baby have your time. Like, I can deal with this later. You're fine. Go deal with your baby.
Right.
Like, go into like, because I think a lot too, like, where that's what she said was like the surrogate, like on her post, she was like, they had the baby and they went to another room. Where that was like their, like, essentially their birthing room. And I'm like, totally fine. Like, that's your baby now. Like, it'll be kind of like, it'll be hard because like you have a baby, but like in the same time, it's like, okay, I had it for you. Go have your time. Like, this is your time now. Like, I carried the baby for 9 months. I had my time. It's your turn.
But then you don't have to worry about,
oh my God,
that
I can sleep.
Postpartum depression as much in the sense, because I had like baby cradle syndrome because I left the hospital and had no baby to hold. You know, I went through the marathon and I gave birth to this beautiful baby, and then I had nothing after that. Yeah. Whereas you have Caroline to go home to. So I think that's beautiful. And, you know, most people were probably right in the sense that it's probably a good idea to have your baby first. So
because I think a lot of it too, if you don't have one, like you go through your, like it's your first pregnancy, and then all of a sudden it's like, it's not your baby. That I think now, like after having Caroline, I think I would have had a harder time if I didn't.
That sounds much harder.
Because like with you, like with like adoption, like you went 6 months of like, you were going to have this baby to, okay, for the best thing I can do for him and for me is to place you. You're never giving up a baby. You're always placing them. Like, you gave him the life that you knew you couldn't. And that's what's hard is like you had 3 months to like really get into that mindset.
Yeah.
And that would be the hardest because like you're over here like 6 months of like, what are we going to do the baby's room? Like, what are we going to name him? Like all this stuff that like leading up to it. And then all of a sudden you're just like, you have to detach yourself and be like, essentially this isn't your baby.
Right.
But going into it for me, it's like a little bit easier of like, I will have Caroline. Like I can have my recovery time and not have to worry about a newborn, but it's like I still have my child. Where you were just like
There's nothing.
6 months of like your life just got ripped out of your arms and you're just like,
There's no emptiness
Yeah.
there. You still have someone to. Yes, I think that's beautiful, and I'm excited to see what you ultimately decide.
it probably won't be
and-
like in the next couple of years too. So like who knows? Like
Yeah,
maybe
I mean,
what if I'm pregnant right now? We don't know. With my second baby, who knows? I always think about that.
Oh my God.
Do you have a test? Should we take one?
I do have an extra test
Maybe I'll go-
upstairs.
No, I don't need it.
Maybe we should both pee on the stick. No, I'm not. Definitely. not.
You're on your period. I'm gonna pee on a stick. I could be.
I know. I just got off of it too. Like
What have you done in Mexico?
I know.
Who have you done in Mexico?
He didn't speak very good English.
You never know.
He was from
He-
Brazil.
He's your baby daddy.
Anyway,
He's a cute baby.
I don't even remember what he really looked like.
Oh, that's good. That's fine.
I just know that I like the way he said my name and how he tangoed.
Alicia.
But I mean, yeah, obviously you and Chase are gonna have deep conversations
We'll have like
about
now that
this.
we're like getting into the process. Like before, it was just like joking. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it now. I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation because we got to get like we have paperwork to fill out now of
Right.
like medical records and to really kind of get the ball rolling now.
Right.
So I'm like, let's really sit down and like.
Seriously
Do,
evaluate.
like, do we want to have a baby first and then do surrogacy? Do we just have Caroline surrogacy, see how this goes, have another one, maybe not even do surrogacy at all? Like, we got to really, like, sit down and have a hard talk.
Yeah. Do you think he'd have sex with you and another baby?
I don't know. I don't know, maybe.
Someone else's baby?
Just maybe not on top because how she was so low. He's like, what's that hard thing? It was her head.
Add that to the list of questions for him.
And she's like, so she sent him an email about like paperwork for him to fill out and kind of get a feel for him too. And she's like, would he be okay if like you had to abstain from sex for like 6 to 12 weeks while you're trying to get pregnant? So you wouldn't, or like if you had to use condoms.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because like, have you ever seen Baby Mama?
yes, I've seen. Can we just spray a little PM down there
Yes, a
before
little
she comes out?
EVOO. And switch. It's fine. See, it's a great show. But like how like they had sex because she had a negative test and she's like, well, I just felt bad. And then it ended up being her baby.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be careful with that too because like they're going to inject, like it's like an IVF process. Like you have to go through like the hormones to make sure you can like get ready. Like you're like basically getting your body ready. Because I was talking to Kylie about it and she's like, they had to open her fallopian tubes to attach the egg.
That sounds
And that's what I would be doing. I'd be doing the process
invasive.
of IVF. Right?
Right.
Right? So it's a lot to like, Chase will have to go through that with my hormones of being crazy. Poor Caroline. She's going to be like, oh my God, my mom's crazy.
It's okay. She already probably thinks that.
She does. She looks at me and goes, she has like the most solemn face when she meets new people. She's just like, she like side eyes them for a
Who
second.
the fuck are we?
And it's, I feel so bad, but she will not, she hardly smiles for my grandma.
Really?
I'm like, she cut your umbilical cord.
Well, you know what
Be
Elliot
happy.
said about Graham?
I mean, yeah, it makes sense.
She's the sweetest
So
lady in the
nice.
world.
I
but
could see it.
Elliot's like, she's scary. I'm like, why? She's so sweet. She's old.
Well, because your grandma,
Yeah.
like, isn't very old, but she's like an old.
My
like,
grandma is in her 70s.
Well, my grandma's 84.
Oh, well, yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know.
She's got that gray hair.
Well, I'm excited for you and I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
For even like
I'm
considering
excited.
it. Like it's fucking really cool.
I know we were so I was talking to Kylie and then my brother called her and then he called me and I kind of like merged the calls and he's like, he's like, you always say I never call you. So I'm calling you. And I'm like, well, hold on. And I like merged calls. I'm like, were you there? And they both go, yep. And he's like, really? And I'm like, well, I was talking to Kylie too. So let's all get in on this conversation. So we're talking. And then I'm like, Andy. And he's like, what? I'm like, I gotta tell you something really cool. And he's like, what's that? And I'm like, I want to be a surrogate. And he goes, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, a surrogate. And he's like, hold on, you're going to do what now? And I'm like, surrogacy. I'm going to have someone else's baby. And he goes, did not see that one coming.
Do you think you'll have to mentally prepare for most people's reaction being like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, because everyone's going to be like, wait, you're doing what? Like, that's like, because I think, and I've thought about that too. After applying, they're going to be like, so, oh my gosh, you're pregnant. Be like, that's not my baby though. They're going to be like, what? I'm like, I'm a surrogate for like, this is like so-and-so. Like, I'm caring for this other family. And I got to like talk to the family too, like how, like what their boundaries are. And like the girl I called on, she's like, she just went through like, she was a surrogate for a family and she delivered in October.
Wow.
And she had an Instagram story where she could like for them. And she kind of like, she's like, that was my way of like tracking this pregnancy for the family. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And she's like, you just got to talk to them and
for the influencee, but just kidding.
Right? Yeah. Like, hey.
I think most people hear that or would see that and be like, follow?
Right?
You know,
Yeah.
because there
It's
still
like-
stems this question of why? You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
And I think too, what's nice about like us doing it, like after like being on here, I'm just like asking any question. Like before we were very closed up. Like after doing this for a year, I'm like, what question do you want to know? Other than seeing my full on vagina, let me tell you.
Ask me anything.
Like I shaved earlier. You want to know about? Oh my god! Speaking of, I bought a wall razor, like a little little
the
dinky
trimmer?
one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for $10 at Ross, and it cleaned up the kitty nice.
Did it?
You should try that. Have you tried actually like a wall like type
So
of razor?
I've been using
for
like
sensitive.
trimmers, like neck
Yes,
trimmers,
that's
and
what
then
it is.
I got my really epic. I got an extra set of foil clippers because those things are as close to a razor shave as you possibly can get.
And
I've
it's
been
for like
going
the
over it.
sensitive part of your neck, right? Anything?
It works.
See?
It works.
Do you still
I
get like
think
ingrown hairs?
I think since I was in a harness for a whole day
I
right
mean, that
after
shit,
I
yeah.
buzzed the cat, and also just like really tight bikinis for a week in the water. I think
Salt
that's
water?
the only reason why I still got some sensitive bump areas. But usually,
For the
like
most
if
part?
I'm gonna ladyscape, that's my go-to route
Yes,
because
you're welcome.
shaving is
My
hell
God.
for me.
I did that with like a single razor with my razor. I'm like, oh my god, it's on fire. But I just did my bikini area because like anything like on top, I'm like that's a no go for me because like once it starts growing back, it just is like sticks to your underwear.
Well, and it's amazing.
Comfortable.
We've talked about how crazy time and perception is because, like, you could shave and be like, yes, I'm clean shaven. And then it lasts for like 12 hours. And the next morning you're bumpy because it's already growing back. And so
It just hurts.
I've tried electrolysis. I've tried shaving, obviously. Tried sugaring,
I just keep it
waxing.
like a 1, maybe
Yeah.
like a 2, like trimmed.
Yeah. Well, you
You know,
know,
you still kind of like get that hair where it's not like such a close shave, but it's like still soft enough where it's not like, oh my god, you shaved, didn't you? Be like, yeah, I did, thank you.
anyone in the adult entertainment industry, if they watch this, please let us know your secret of how you keep such a clean, soft shaven
Right?
snatch. Like,
Oh my god, and like no razor bumps.
I don't
Like,
understand. Is
what
it
about
Photoshop?
What about your legs? I get those like, what are the strawberry legs? See, we get strawberry legs.
Dude, this is I got a really bad
Razor
reaction.
burn?
Like, I don't know if it was too much sun, too much water, too much sunscreen or what, but like
All
on
the
top of
above?
the other stuff that happened in Mexico, like I broke out in like hives.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like
yeah,
it
it's
looked
everything.
like hand, foot, and mouth
Oh, jeez.
disease, where it's just the tiny little red dots. It was on the tops of my hands and my feet, up my legs. I still have some on my belly,
Mm.
and they were really itchy. But I don't know. It's interesting. But now we're tangenting. I
Now-
can't
now
wait
we're
to
gonna cut it
hear
off.
and learn more about this
I'm
with you.
excited. Yeah,
And I'm
I'll
sure
give you that link.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll have more good questions to ask the more you learn, the more you
Absolutely.
educate us.
Let's go.
So thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions,
That was a lot after we just said like the last week. We're gonna keep them short and sweet.
I feel like this was
That
this
one you
was
can't
the-
like. This was like the introduction to it, so that one you kind of go lengthy on.
Well, and I feel like it raises a lot of really good questions.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of good questions. Like if anyone is like thinking or considering it or going through it that maybe they didn't think of, or even anyone who hasn't
Yeah,
had children,
absolutely.
like I don't know. So sorry
Bring it up.
Not sorry. This was longer. But anyways, if you have any questions or if you're curious about any agencies or information, if you're local to Utah, you can email into the show at hardtalkswithbnh@gmail.com.
There you go.
And
give us a follow on Facebook and Instagram at Hard Talks with B and H. And we are also on Twitter with Hard Talks with B1.
Yes. And we
You're
have
welcome.
a couple new episodes up on Patreon. So if you're subscribed to that, go listen now.
Hey, yo.
Wherever you are, wherever you're listening to this, I hope you know how wonderful you are. Stay wise, be kind,
Be
and
cool.
don't do anything we wouldn't do.
Like be a surrogate?
I mean, there's not much we
shit,
wouldn't
you might
do.
as well, right? Shit, man. Let's get it done.
But until next time, guys, we love you the most.
Bye.
Bye.
I don't know.
Bye.
Yeah. Toodles.